Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of How to Fix DBD. If you're new here, this is a series is pretty much I'm going to talk about a few problems that I personally believe the game has, and to an extent is a general problem that most of the community knows about it, or at least complains about it. And I'll give solutions to them, not just point them out, but actually give viable solutions to them. So in this episode in particular, I would like to focus on camping and like when the killer camps and the overall gameplay, I guess I could say, of the match, the overall flow of the match. I think that's kind of a problem with the game as well that they could probably work on it, but to do that they would probably have to change the objectives. And as you can see, like the first problem is really that I think is really just the interaction that the killer has with the survivors. Because the fun of the game is really interacting with, especially if you're playing survivors, and that's killer as well, right? Because killer is boring if you're just running around the map and never find your survivor. So it's the same for both sides. The fun of the game comes from the interaction that they both have together, which is already kind of a flaw that I think in the game has, is that it only allows the killer to interact with one survivor at a time, which I think it's a flaw. Because it essentially forces a boring game for the other three survivors that are not interacting like, pretty much all the time, you know? It's only the survivor that single survivor that's interacting with the killer where the game is fun. Or, a few exceptions to this would be maybe like a hook or something where there's like multiple people going for the save or something like that. Maybe you're gonna do a body block, for example, while someone is wiggling. Those would be a few exceptions where there's actually more than one survivor is interacting with the killer at the same time. But overall, like the majority of the game, it just happens like the killer interacts with one survivor and then switches the interaction to another survivor, and it keeps going like that, which is kind of boring. And besides that interaction with the killer, the only other interaction you have as survivor is when you go for save someone, essentially. Besides doing gens, would be when you go to save someone on the hook. But again, saving some people on the hook is not as fun as being chased by the killer, for example. So again, boring mechanics. Boring flow of the game. It's not as fun as it could be. Now, a game that I think does it right is a game that's called Resident Evil Resistance. I do actually have a few games of it in my channel. I post videos of it. I think that's a 4v1 game done right, which is when, if you saw the gameplay of that game, you will see that the killer, it's called Mastermind of that game. The killer is always interacting with pretty much all the four survivors at the same time, and all the four survivors at the same time are interacting with the killer. So it's a much more dynamic experience than just like sitting and doing a gen and holding a button, which is something that does not happen there as well. The objectives on that game are not based on holding a button. There's only like, for the most part, yeah, there's only like one on area 2. There's 3 areas to that game. In area 2 there's an objective, you have to hold a button, but it's like 5 seconds. It's not like you have to hold a button for 80 seconds like on the Dead by Daylight here. And you're not just holding as well, there's like zombies, creatures around you, so you're always interacting, shooting creatures. It's not like you're just like sitting there and holding and nothing's happening around you, you know what I mean? So it's a much more dynamic, and in my opinion it makes it more fun to play, both as a survivor and as a killer. Because as the killer, you're constantly interacting with every movement that any of the survivors do is important, and you can't be watching all of them almost at the same time in that game. Whereas here you cannot. The killer can only focus on one survivor, and he doesn't even know, because the maps are so big, where the other survivors are. On that game, like there's a map for everyone, and everyone knows where everyone is. So and you also know where the mastermind is looking at all times. So it's a much more engaging and interactive experience, which is what I think it just helps to flow the game like so much more, and it just becomes more fun in general because you're always interacting. It's not just boring parts of the game where you're doing nothing essentially. So that's what I think they should try to. I think that is like a perfect example, like a benchmark of how a 4v1 game should be, in terms of making it fun and interactive, dynamic and whatnot. Very active pace, kind of a more fast pace as well, and not so much like stalling, like just sitting around doing gens, crouching, stealth mode, and things of that nature that you can definitely find in Dead by Daylight. So if they happen to include something that could another way they can easily fix this as well is by simply reducing the size of the map, because that way it's much more easier for the killer to go from gen to gen and interact with the survivors that are doing the generators. So if the maps were smaller, it would be much easier to do that. Or if they don't want to reduce the map in particular, they could just increase the mobility of the killers either by increasing the speed of their power itself, the speed of their walking speed. Although increasing the speed of their walking speed would probably be the hardest solution, because it would fuck up with the loops. It would be like chasing a killer with bloodlust. You just would fuck up all the loops. It would be pretty much impossible for the survivors if the speeds were increased beyond what is default. So I guess an easier fix would be for them to kind of like the similar system with like the Freddy when you wake up from the sleeping state. If they have something of that nature on all the maps that would allow the killer to teleport from area, any killer to teleport from area to area, that would make it way more fun as well for the killer to play and be pressuring all the survivors at all times, you know? Essentially like a base teleport for all killers in a way. And he could just like base teleport around the map and reach the survivors faster that way than having to waste like 30 seconds to cross the map walking, which, you know, is like half a gen essentially. It's like so dumb. You know what I mean? So that would already, you know, help a lot with the flow. And you see right here what I mentioned about camping. This is, in a way, it's kind of a boring play as well, because again, it forces the survivor to do nothing, just sit around, do gens, and press a button, which is boring gameplay. And for the killer, in a way, it's kind of boring as well, because, I mean, sure, you're getting the kill, but you're just like running around doing nothing. You're not chasing anyone, so where's the fun in that also? But the reason why I personally don't think that is a problem in terms of balance is because, as you can see, because he was camping, he cannot camp and defend the gens at the same time. So as long as it's not I don't think it's a balance problem if he's camping, because you just do the gens. That's as simple as that. If you see him camping, do the gens, and it takes 2 minutes for them to die on the hook. It takes only 80 seconds for you to finish a gen solo, okay? Solo. But keep in mind that there can be other 3 survivors doing a gen, so in that 80 seconds you're going to be finishing 3 gens, not just 1, if all survivors are working on it. So, you know, the killer essentially loses. That's my point. If he camps and you do the gen, he loses. Even though he might get 1 kill, he's going to lose all the others, which, again, it's almost a loss. You're probably going to deep pip for not killing 3 people, you know what I mean? And just camping 1 to death. So, in a way, he's losing on, you know, not just on kills, but also on pips. And, you know, he's going to do less points. Everything is bad for him by playing this way. And a simple way they can fix this is, I think, is the same thing with the flow. If the flow of the game was better, if the killer had more movement speed, more mobility, like that little teleport that I gave as a solution, or reducing the map size, he would not have to camp, because he would always be on chases. Okay, he could just easily like take a few steps and he would be already engaging on another chase, and it just wouldn't be as boring as you can see this match, for example. Just I pretty much did, you know, he chased me a few times and then he leaves me, you know. Which you like, for example, on Resistance, if the Mastermind leaves you like this, you can totally lose the game because of that. Because like I mentioned, all the survivors have a role in the match and they can win the match, so you have to be constantly focusing on all of them at the same time. So it's much more interactive. Right here, no, the killer can just, you know, ignore you like she's doing to me, and I'm essentially a hostage, you know. My fun is a hostage of her. She can choose to chase me or not to chase me. So it's like, again, just like a boring hostage type of mechanic. Now, just a comment on this chase in particular. I'm not used to this map, but they changed it. It's the new variation, so I'm not like 100% used to it. So you see me doing a few like what the fuck's here in the chase, like this for example. I didn't even know you could vault that window. So I was really surprised when she vaulted that from that side. So that's how used I am to this map. But anyway, I just adapted there. But yeah, I continued the chase. But yeah, like I was mentioning, I don't think camping is a problem. They just really need to give an incentive, but not just an incentive like, okay, you're gonna have fun, you're gonna chase survivors, but an incentive that like you're actually going to be winning the match for chasing more survivors rather than just camping the hook. Because currently there is no incentive to do that. Like if you want to win, you have to play for the kills. You cannot play for just simple chase and hooks, because otherwise you might get hooks, but you're not gonna kill anyone. So what's the fun in that? And the game still, you know, depips you, counts you as a loss. You get, you know, it's like, what's the fun? No one wants to get depipped for doing chases. You know what I mean? So, and you see right there, I actually got stuck on that fountain. I was trying to do a fake vault there, but I got stuck on the fountain, on the fountain there. That was annoying, because you cannot tell the fountain is there, right? Unless you look. So I was looking backwards anyway. So yeah, that's what I mean. They need to either reduce the maps or increase the mobility of all killers. That would make it more beneficial for him to, you know, he would be able to pressure more survivors. It would make the game more engaging, because he would have more easy access to the survivors. And maybe in that way also an incentive to not camp, you know, and you can still win by not camping, because you're going to be constantly pressuring the gens. Another thing they can do is help reducing, just like Ruin does, or the perk Ruin. They need something that the reduced speed of the gens when he kicks it needs to be faster as well. Okay, so that would make it a lot more fun as well. So the gens don't fly by when you're interacting with only one survivor. So yeah, that's just a couple of fixes. I'm probably gonna go back on this topic on further episodes as well, because this you can talk a lot about this. But you can see right there, he pretty much lost the game there. He only got 3 kills. Sorry, 1 kill. But yeah, this my few comments here on these two topics, and I'll definitely cover more of them on next episode. So see you guys there.